Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Advance with me, Jessica. Today we're going on a really exciting journey together. We're going to explore how you can speak English fluently and easily. Many of you tell me that you want to speak English without hesitation, without getting stuck trying to find the right words. You want to feel confident when you open your mouth to speak English, whether you're talking to a friend, ordering food, or maybe even giving a presentation at work or school. Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to dive deep into practical ways you can make this a reality. Forget about those old, boring grammar lessons for a moment. We're going to focus on making English a natural part of your life, something you can use effortlessly. Think about a time when you learned to do something really well, something you enjoy now. Maybe it was riding a bicycle, or cooking a favorite dish, or even playing a video game. When you first started, it probably felt a bit awkward, right? You might have wobbled a lot on the bike, or the first few attempts at that dish might not have tasted so great, but you didn't give up. You kept practicing, you learned from your mistakes, and slowly, little by little, it became easier. Now, you probably don't even think about the individual steps involved anymore. It just flows. Learning to speak English fluently is very similar to this. It takes time, practice, and the right approach. One of the most important things to remember is that fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to communicate your thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively, even if you make a few small mistakes along the way. Native English speakers make mistakes too. Don't let the fear of making errors hold you back from speaking. In fact, making mistakes is a crucial part of the learning process. It's how you identify areas where you need to improve. Think of each mistake as a little clue, showing you what to work on next. Now, let's talk about some practical things you can do every day to improve your spoken English. One of the most effective ways is to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. This doesn't mean you have to move to an English-speaking country, although that can be a fantastic experience if you have the opportunity. But you can create your own English-speaking environment right where you are. Think about your daily routine. How can you bring more English into it? Maybe you can start by changing the language settings on your phone or your computer to English. This might seem like a small thing, but you'll be surprised how many new words and phrases you pick up just by navigating your devices in English. Every time you see a button or a menu item, you're getting a little bit of exposure to the language. Another great way to immerse yourself is by listening to English regularly, and that's exactly what you're doing right now. Listening to podcasts like this one is a fantastic way to improve your understanding of spoken English, to get used to different accents and speaking styles, and to learn new vocabulary and expressions in context. Try to listen to a variety of things: news, stories, conversations, anything that interests you. Don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. Just focus on getting the general idea. The more you listen, the more your brain will get used to the rhythm and sounds of English. Let me share a little story with you. I once had a student. Let's call him Ali. Ali was very motivated to learn English, but he was also very shy about speaking. He was afraid of making mistakes, and this fear really held him back. He would study grammar rules and vocabulary lists diligently, but when it came to actually speaking, he would freeze. One day, I suggested to Ali that he start listening to English podcasts on his way to work. He started with simple conversations and slowly moved on to more complex topics. At first, he understood very little, but he didn't give up. He listened every day, even if it was just for 15 minutes. Gradually, he started to notice that he was understanding more and more. He began to pick up new words and phrases without even consciously trying to memorize them. And something else amazing happened. He started to feel more confident about his own ability to speak. Just by listening regularly, he was building a stronger foundation in the language. So, just like Ali, try to find English audio that you enjoy and make it a regular part of your routine. You can listen while you're commuting, doing chores around the house, or even just relaxing. The key is consistency. Even short periods of listening every day can make a big difference over time. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect of becoming fluent: speaking. It might sound obvious, but the more you speak, the better you'll become at it. Don't wait until you feel completely confident to start speaking. Start now, even if you only know a few words and phrases. Find opportunities to speak English whenever you can. If you have friends or family members who are also learning English, practice with them. You can have simple conversations about your day, your hobbies, or anything else that comes to mind. Don't be afraid to make mistakes in front of each other. That's how you'll both learn and improve. If you don't have anyone to practice with in person, there are many online resources available. You can find language exchange partners who are native English speakers and want to learn your language. You can also join online English conversation groups or forums. These platforms provide a safe and supportive environment where you can practice speaking without feeling self-conscious. Let me tell you about another student, Sarah. Sarah lived in a small town where there weren't many opportunities to speak English, but she was determined to improve. So she started looking for online language exchange partners. She found a few people from different English-speaking countries who were learning her native language. They would have regular video calls where they would spend half the time speaking English and the other half speaking Sarah's language. At first, Sarah was very nervous. She felt like she was making a lot of mistakes and that her English wasn't very good. But her language partners were very patient and encouraging. They helped her correct her mistakes and gave her positive feedback. Over time, Sarah's confidence grew and her spoken English improved dramatically. The regular practice and the interaction with native speakers made a huge difference. So don't let a lack of local opportunities stop you from practicing your spoken English. The internet has opened up a world of possibilities for connecting with English speakers from all over the globe. Take advantage of these resources and start speaking today. Another powerful technique for improving your fluency is to think in English. This might sound challenging, especially if you're used to thinking in your native language and then translating into English. But with practice, you can train your brain to think directly in English. One way to start doing this is by narrating your day to yourself in English. As you go about your daily activities, try to think about what you're doing and what's happening around you using English words and phrases. For example, if you're making breakfast, you can think to yourself, "I'm taking the eggs out of the refrigerator. Now I'm cracking them into a bowl. I need to add some salt and pepper." This might feel a bit strange at first, but it's a great way to get your brain used to using English in everyday situations. You can also try to describe things you see around you in English. Look out the window and describe the weather, the buildings, the people you see. Or pick an object in your room and describe it in detail. its color, its shape, its size, what it's made of. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural it will become, and the faster you'll be able to speak without having to translate in your head. Let me share a quick story about this. When I was learning a new language, I found it really helpful to label things around my house with their names in that language. So I would put a sticker that said table on the table, chair on the chair, and so on. This constant visual reminder helped me to associate the object directly with the English word, without having to go through my native language first. You can try something similar. Label objects around your home or office with their English names. It's a simple but effective way to build your English vocabulary and start thinking in English. Reading in English is also incredibly beneficial for improving your fluency. When you read, you're exposed to a wide range of vocabulary, grammar structures, and sentence patterns. You see how native speakers put words together to express their ideas. Try to read different types of English materials that interest you: news articles, blog posts, short stories, novels. Don't worry if you don't understand every single word. Focus on getting the main idea. If you come across new words, try to guess their meaning from the context. You can also keep a vocabulary notebook and write down new words and their definitions. Reading aloud is an especially effective way to improve your spoken English. When you read aloud, you're not only seeing the words, but you're also saying them. This helps you to practice your pronunciation and your intonation. Try to mimic the rhythm and flow of the English language as you read. I remember another student, David, who really struggled with pronunciation. He had a strong accent that made it difficult for native speakers to understand him sometimes. I suggested that he start reading English texts aloud for at least 15 minutes every day. He chose short news articles and tried his best to pronounce the words clearly and to pay attention to the way the sentences sounded. Over time, his pronunciation improved significantly. He became more aware of the sounds of English and more confident in his ability to speak clearly. Reading aloud was a key part of his progress. So make reading in English a regular part of your learning routine, and don't be afraid to read aloud. It's a fantastic way to expand your vocabulary, improve your grammar, and enhance your pronunciation, all of which contribute to greater fluency. Now, let's talk about active practice. It's not enough to just passively listen or read. You need to actively use the language yourself. One great way to do this is through role-playing. Imagine different everyday scenarios: ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, having a conversation with a new acquaintance. Then practice these scenarios by yourself or with a language partner. Take on different roles and try to speak as naturally as possible. For example, let's imagine you're at a coffee shop. Practice ordering a coffee. You could say something like, "Hi, I'd like a latte, please." A medium, 1. Then imagine the barista asking you questions and respond naturally. For here or to go? To go, please. Anything else? No, thank you. You can create your own role-playing scenarios based on situations you might encounter in real life. The more you practice these conversations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become in using English in different situations. Another effective active practice technique is to record yourself speaking English. Choose a topic you're familiar with or something you've read or heard recently and talk about it for a few minutes. Don't worry about being perfect. Just speak as naturally as you can. After you've finished recording, listen back to yourself. This can be a bit uncomfortable at first, but it's a very valuable way to identify areas where you can improve. Pay attention to your pronunciation, your grammar, your vocabulary, and your overall fluency. Where did you hesitate? Which words or phrases did you struggle with? Did you make any grammatical errors? By listening to yourself, you'll become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and you can then focus on improving those specific areas. You can do this regularly, maybe once a week, and keep your recordings. Then, after a few months, listen back to your earlier recordings. You'll likely be surprised at how much you've improved. It's a great way to track your progress and stay motivated. Vocabulary building is also essential for fluency. The more words you know, the more easily you'll be able to express yourself. But it's not just about memorizing long lists of words. It's about learning new vocabulary in context and actively using it. When you come across a new word while listening or reading, don't just look up its definition and move on. Try to understand how it's used in the sentence. Are there any other words that often go with it? What's the tone or connotation of the word? Keep a vocabulary notebook where you write down new words, their definitions, and example sentences. Review your notebook regularly to help you remember the new words. But the most important thing is to actively use the new vocabulary you learn. Try to incorporate new words into your speaking and writing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's part of the learning process. The more you use a new word, the more likely you are to remember it and to use it correctly. Let me tell you about a simple technique I often recommend to my students for learning new vocabulary. It's called the Word of the Day approach. You can find many apps or websites that provide a new English word each day, along with its definition and example sentences. Try to learn that one new word every day. Write it down, say it out loud, and try to use it in a sentence of your own. Over the course of a year, you'll learn hundreds of new words. It's a slow and steady approach that can lead to significant vocabulary growth over time. Another key to speaking fluently is to learn and use common English phrases and idioms. Native speakers use these all the time, and understanding them will not only help you to comprehend spoken English better, but also make your own English sound more natural. For example, instead of saying, "I'm very tired," a native speaker might say, "I'm worn out" or "I'm beat." Instead of saying, "It's raining heavily," they might say, "It's raining cats and dogs." Start paying attention to these common phrases and idioms when you're listening to English or reading it. Write them down and try to understand their meaning from the context. Then try to use them in your own speaking and writing. Learning these common expressions can really boost your fluency and make your English sound more idiomatic. It's like unlocking a secret code to more natural-sounding English. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, be patient and persistent. Learning to speak English fluently takes time and effort. There will be days when you feel like you're making progress, and there will be days when you feel stuck or even discouraged. This is normal. Don't get discouraged by mistakes or setbacks. Everyone who has learned a new language has gone through similar experiences. The key is to keep practicing, to keep learning, and to never give up on your goal. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it seems. Every new word you learn, every conversation you have, every time you understand something you couldn't before, these are all steps forward. Remember why you started learning English in the first place. What are your goals? Do you want to travel? Do you want to communicate with people from different cultures? Do you need English for your work or studies? Keep your goals in mind to stay motivated when things get challenging. And remember that learning should be enjoyable. Find ways to make your English learning fun. Watch English movies or TV shows that you enjoy. Listen to English music. Read English books or magazines about topics that interest you. The more you enjoy the process, the more likely you are to stick with it and to achieve your goal of speaking English fluently and easily. So, to sum up our journey today, remember these key points. Immerse yourself in English by listening regularly. Practice speaking whenever you can. Think in English. Read widely and read aloud. Engage in active practice like role-playing and recording yourself. Build your vocabulary and context. Learn common English phrases and idioms, and most importantly, be patient, persistent, and enjoy the process. Learning to speak English fluently and easily is definitely achievable with consistent effort and the right strategies. You have the potential to become a confident and fluent English speaker. Just believe in yourself, put in the work, and don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. So we just talked about the importance of being patient and persistent, and how enjoying the journey is a huge part of your success. But let's be honest. Sometimes studying can feel like a chore, can't it? We sit down with our books or apps, and it feels like work. So how do we shift that feeling? How do we genuinely make learning English fun? Well, the secret is to stop thinking of it as studying and start thinking of it as living in English. The best way to do this is to connect English with something you already love, something you are passionate about. Think about what you do in your free time. Do you love watching movies or TV series? If you do, you have a powerful learning tool right in front of you. Instead of just passively watching, you can turn it into an active learning experience. You could start by watching a movie you have already seen in your own language. Because you already know the story, you won't feel so stressed about understanding every single word. You can relax and just absorb the language. Try watching it with English subtitles first. This helps you connect the spoken words with their written form. When you hear a new phrase that you like, pause and repeat it. Try to imitate the actor's intonation and emotion. After you feel comfortable with that, challenge yourself to watch it again, but this time without any subtitles at all. You might be amazed at how much you can understand just from the context, the visuals, and the memory of the story. This isn't just about learning words. It's about learning how people naturally talk, how they use humor, and how they express feelings. Or maybe you are a music lover. Music is an incredible way to learn English because it's emotional and repetitive. Find English songs that you enjoy and look up the lyrics. Read the lyrics as you listen to the song. This will help you catch words and phrases that might be difficult to understand otherwise. You can even try singing along. Singing is a fantastic way to practice your pronunciation, rhythm, and the flow of English sentences. Don't worry about sounding perfect. Just have fun with it. When you sing, you are practicing muscle memory in your mouth and tongue, training them to make English sounds more naturally. I had a student once named Chloe who was quite shy about speaking. But she loved pop music. She started learning one new English song every week. She would sing it in the car, in the shower, everywhere. Within a few months, her friends started noticing a huge difference in her fluency and pronunciation. She sounded so much more natural, and it was all because she found a fun way to practice that didn't feel like practice at all. What if you're a gamer? Video games are a goldmine for English practice. Many games, especially online multiplayer games, require you to communicate with other players from around the world. This is real, spontaneous conversation. You have to listen to instructions, ask questions, and make plans, often very quickly. It forces you to use English in a practical, goal-oriented way. You can also play story-based games and switch the language to English. You'll be reading quest descriptions, listening to character dialogues, and making choices in English. It's an immersive experience that can teach you a huge amount of vocabulary related to adventure, fantasy, or whatever genre you enjoy. The key is to integrate English into activities you would be doing anyway. If you love cooking, why not try following a recipe from an English language website or a YouTube cooking show? You'll learn lots of vocabulary related to food and actions in the kitchen, like chop, stir, bake, and fry. If you're into sports, try watching a game with English commentary. At first, it might sound incredibly fast, but soon you'll start picking up the specific phrases and vocabulary they use over and over again. You're not adding a new task to your day called Learn English. Instead, you're just changing the language of the life you already live. Now, this idea of listening and imitating brings us to a very powerful technique that can dramatically improve your speaking skills. It's called shadowing. It might sound a bit mysterious, but it's actually very simple. Shadowing is the practice of listening to a short piece of English audios and repeating what you hear as you hear it, with as little delay as possible. You are essentially speaking along with the native speaker, like their shadow. Here's how you could do it. First, find a short audio clip, maybe 1 or 2 minutes long. It could be from a podcast like this one, a news report, or even a scene from a movie. It's important to choose something where the speaker is talking clearly and at a moderate pace. Also, make sure you have a transcript, which is the written text of the audio. For the first step, just listen to the audio a couple of times while reading the transcript. This helps you become familiar with the content, the vocabulary, and the speaker's rhythm. For the second step, you'll start shadowing. Play the audio again, and this time, try to speak along with the speaker. Read the transcript at the same time if you need to. Don't stop the audio. Try to keep up with the speaker as best as you can. It will feel awkward at first. Your mouth might feel clumsy and you might miss some words. That's perfectly okay. The goal here is not perfection, but imitation. You're trying to copy the speaker's pronunciation, the way they link words together, their intonation, the music of their speech. Once you feel a bit more comfortable, you can move to the third step, shadow without the transcript. Just listen to the audio and repeat what you hear. This is more challenging because you have to rely completely on your ears. It forces you to listen very, very carefully. Do this for just a few minutes every day. You can use the same audio clip for a whole week until you feel you can say it smoothly and confidently. I remember a student, Kenji, from Japan. He had a very good understanding of English grammar and a wide vocabulary, but he spoke in a very flat, robotic way. His pronunciation was difficult for people to understand, and he lacked the natural rhythm of English. He felt very frustrated. I introduced him to the shadowing technique. He was skeptical at first, but he agreed to try it for 15 minutes every day. He chose a short clip from a TED talk. For the first week, he said it felt impossible, but he persisted. By the third week, something started to click. He started to feel the rhythm of the sentences. His pronunciation of difficult sounds improved because he was constantly imitating a native speaker. After 2 months of consistent shadowing, his speaking was transformed. He sounded more confident, clearer, and much more natural. He told me that shadowing taught his mouth how to speak English, not just his brain. So I really encourage you to try this technique. It can be one of the most effective things you do to bridge the gap between understanding English and speaking it fluently and naturally. Find a short audio clip today, maybe even a part of this podcast, and just try shadowing for 5 minutes. See how it feels. Now, as you continue on your English learning journey, you might experience something that many learners face. It's called the intermediate plateau. This is a period where you feel like you're stuck. You've learned the basics, you can communicate, but you just don't feel like you're making any more progress. Your improvement seems to slow down or even stop completely. This can be a very discouraging time. You might think, I'm studying so much, but I'm not getting any better. What's wrong with me? The first thing you need to know is that this is a completely normal part of the learning process. Almost every single language learner experiences the intermediate plateau. It happens because, in the beginning, you learn so many new things so quickly. You go from knowing nothing to being able to have a simple conversation. The progress is obvious and exciting. But as you get to an intermediate level, the things you need to learn become more subtle, more nuanced. You're no longer learning big, basic rules. You're learning exceptions, more sophisticated vocabulary, and more complex sentence structures. The progress is still happening, but it's slower and harder to see. Let me tell you a story about a student named Maria. Maria had been learning English for a few years and had reached a solid B1 level. She could handle most everyday conversations, but she felt trapped. She said she always used the same simple words and the same basic sentences. She wanted to express more complex ideas, to sound more intelligent and interesting, but she didn't know how. She was on the plateaus, and she was losing her motivation. So how do you break through this plateau? The key is to change your routine and challenge yourself in new ways. If you always do the same things, you'll get the same results. Maria's routine was to use a vocabulary app and watch her favorite American sitcom. It was comfortable, but it wasn't pushing her to grow. I suggested a few changes to her. First, instead of just learning random words from an app, I asked her to start learning words by topic. For 1 week, she focused only on vocabulary related to technology. The next week, it was words related to the environment. This helped her to build deeper knowledge in specific areas, which allowed her to have more detailed conversations on those topics. Second, I encouraged her to step outside of her comfort zone with her listening and reading. Instead of only watching a sitcom she knew well, I suggested she try watching a documentary on a topic she was interested in, or listening to a debate or a talk show. These types of content use more formal and complex language. It was difficult for her at first, but it exposed her to new ways of structuring arguments and expressing opinions. She started a notebook where she wrote down phrases she liked, not just single words. Phrases like, on the one hand, or it's important to take into account that. These were the tools she needed to express more complex thoughts. Finally, and most importantly, I told her she needed to start producing more complex language herself. She started a simple journal. Every day she would write just one paragraph about her opinion on a news story she had read. She tried to use the new vocabulary and phrases she was learning. She also found a language exchange partner online, and they agreed that once a week they would have a debate on a specific topic. This was scary for her, but it forced her to actively use the language she was learning to build arguments and respond to her partner's points. It wasn't an overnight change, but slowly, Maria started to climb off the plateau. She felt her English becoming richer and more flexible. She was no longer stuck using the same simple phrases. The key was that she identified where she was stuck and intentionally sought out new challenges that would force her to grow. So if you feel like you're on a plateau, take a look at your learning routine. Are you in a comfort zone? What is one new, challenging thing you can add to your practice this week? Maybe it's reading a news article from a quality newspaper, or trying the shadowing technique we just talked about, or finding a partner to discuss a serious topic with. Pushing yourself just a little bit beyond what is comfortable is where the real growth happens. This brings me to another wonderful and powerful idea: becoming a storyteller in English. We are all natural storytellers. We tell stories to our friends and family every day. We talk about what happened at work, a funny thing we saw on the street, or a memory from our childhood. Stories are how we connect with each other. Learning to tell your own simple stories in English is one of the best ways to practice fluency. Why is storytelling so effective? Because it's personal. When you tell your own story, you are not just reciting memorized phrases. You are motivated to communicate something real, something that matters to you. It brings together all your skills, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation for a real purpose. You can start very small. Think about your day. What is one interesting, funny, or frustrating thing that happened? Try to tell that story in just 3 to 5 simple English sentences. You can say it out loud to yourself. For example, today I was walking to the bus stop. Suddenly it started to rain very heavily. I didn't have an umbrella, so I got completely wet. That's a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. As you get more comfortable, you can try to add more details. What were you thinking? What did you see or hear? How did you feel? Let's try to expand that simple story. This morning, I was walking to the bus stop, thinking about the busy day ahead of me. The sky was blue, so I didn't even think about taking an umbrella. Then, out of nowhere, big dark clouds appeared, and it started to rain cats and dogs. In just a few seconds, I was completely soaked. I felt so cold and a little bit silly standing there without an umbrella. See how adding those details makes the story more engaging? Practice telling these little stories every day. You can tell them to yourself. You can record them on your phone, or you can share them with a language partner. The more you do it, the more natural it will become to structure your thoughts in English and to find the words you need to express yourself. You are not just practicing English, you are practicing communication. You are learning to connect your ideas and emotions with the language, which is the very heart of fluency. Think about a happy memory from your childhood. Can you describe it in a few English sentences? Think about a goal you have for the future. Can you explain it in English? By turning your own life and your own thoughts into your practice material, you make learning meaningful and much more effective. You are building the ability to speak spontaneously, to go beyond simple questions and answers, and to truly share who you are with others in English. This is an incredibly rewarding part of the journey, and it's something you can start doing right now. Now, as you start to practice telling your own stories, you might notice a little voice inside your head. It might be a quiet whisper, or it might be a loud shout. It's the voice of fear and self-doubt. This voice might say things like, "What if I make a mistake?" Or "People will think my English is bad," or "I don't know enough words to say what I really mean." This fear of judgment is one of the biggest obstacles that English learners face. It can be so powerful that it stops us from speaking altogether. We have all this knowledge in our heads, but the fear creates a wall between our thoughts and our mouth. So, how do we break down this wall? The first step is to change how we think about confidence. Many people believe that confidence is something you get after you become fluent. They think, when I can speak English perfectly, then I will feel confident. But I want to share a little secret with you. It actually works the other way around. Confidence is not the result of fluency. It is a tool that you use to achieve fluency. Think about learning to swim. When you first get in the water, you don't know how to swim perfectly. You have to have a little bit of trust, a little bit of confidence that the water will hold you up. You have to believe you can float even if it feels scary. It's that initial bit of confidence that allows you to relax and practice the movements, and that practice is what eventually makes you a good swimmer. Speaking English is the same. You need to have a little bit of confidence to open your mouth and try, even if you're not perfect. And it's that act of trying, of practicing, that builds your skill and leads to fluency. So don't wait for confidence to magically appear. Decide to be confident now, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Decide to trust that you can communicate and then take the small action of speaking. Let me tell you about a man I once coached named Alex. Alex was a brilliant software engineer, but he worked for an international company where all the meetings were in English. He was terrified of speaking. In his head, he knew exactly what he wanted to say, but when he opened his mouth in a meeting, the words would get stuck. His heart would race, and he would start to sweat. He was so afraid that his colleagues would judge his accent or his grammar mistakes. He felt that if his English wasn't perfect, they wouldn't respect his ideas. We worked together on a plan. His first step was not to give a big presentation. That was too scary. His first step was simply to ask one question in the next meeting, just one. Before the meeting, he prepared the question. He wrote it down. He practiced saying it out loud to himself until it felt comfortable. During the meeting, his heart was still pounding, but he took a deep breath, and when the moment came, he asked his question. And you know what happened? People in the meeting simply answered it. Nobody commented on his accent. Nobody laughed. They just heard his idea and responded. This tiny victory was a huge turning point for Alex. He proved to his brain that his fear was bigger than the reality. The next week, he challenged himself to make one comment in addition to asking a question. He slowly built up his participation, one small step at a time. He started to focus more on the message he wanted to share rather than the perfection of his grammar. He realized that his colleagues were more interested in his valuable ideas than in the small mistakes he might make. Over several months, Alex became one of the more active speakers in his team meetings. He didn't become a perfect English speaker overnight, but he learned how to manage his fear and to use the English he had confidently. Alex's story shows us that the key is to take small, manageable steps. If you are afraid of speaking, don't set a goal of having a 1-hour conversation. Set a goal of saying, "Hello, how are you?" to someone, or ordering your coffee in English. Every time you take a small step and survive, you are teaching your brain that speaking English is not a dangerous situation. You are building evidence that you can do it. Another powerful way to deal with this fear is to work on your internal monologue, the things you say to yourself. We all have an inner critic. For English learners, this critic can be very loud, constantly pointing out our mistakes and telling us we're not good enough. You need to learn how to talk back to this inner critic. You need to become your own cheerleader. When you catch yourself thinking a negative thought like, "My pronunciation is terrible," I want you to stop and rephrase it. Turn it into something more positive and realistic. Instead of, "My pronunciation is terrible," you could say, "I am actively working on improving my pronunciation, and it's getting better every day." Instead of thinking, "I will never be fluent," try saying, "Every time I practice, I get one step closer to fluency." This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about being kind to yourself and focusing on progress, not perfection. Your mindset has a huge impact on your ability to learn. If you believe you can improve, you will. If you constantly tell yourself you're failing, you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now let's talk more about mistakes. The fear of making mistakes is probably the #1 reason people don't speak. We have been trained by school systems that mistakes are bad, and we get punished for them with low grades. But in language learning, this is completely wrong. In language learning, mistakes are not just okay, they are essential, they are necessary. You cannot become fluent without making thousands of mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. They are evidence that you are stepping outside your comfort zone. I want you to reframe how you see mistakes. A mistake is not a failure. A mistake is a piece of information. It's feedback. It's a signpost that shows you exactly what you need to learn next. When you make a mistake and someone corrects you, your first feeling might be embarrassment. Try to change that feeling to gratitude. That person has just given you a free, personalized English lesson. They have shown you how to say something more naturally. Here's a practical tip. Get a small notebook and call it your mistake notebook. Whenever you make a mistake that someone corrects or a mistake you notice yourself, write it down. But don't just write the mistake. Write the correction next to it. For example, you might have said, "I am agree with you." Tiena. Someone corrects you and says, "Oh, you mean I agree with you." In your notebook, you would write, "Mistake. I am agree." Correction. I agree. Then, your job is to review this notebook regularly. And for a real challenge, try to use the corrected form correctly in a conversation later that same day. This process turns a mistake from a moment of embarrassment into a powerful learning tool. You are making your mistakes work for you. While we're talking about communication, it's important to remember that fluency is not just about the words you say. A huge part of communication is nonverbal. It's your body language, your facial expressions, your tone of voice. You can use these things to help you communicate more effectively and to feel more confident. When you are speaking English, try to make eye contact with the person you are talking to. This shows that you are engaged and confident even if you don't feel it inside. A simple smile can make you seem more approachable and can put both you and the other person at ease. Use your hands to gesture when you talk. This can help you to explain your ideas, especially if you are searching for a word. All of these things send a signal to the listener that you are confident in trying to connect with them. And something amazing happens when you do this. When you adopt confident body language, it can actually trick your brain into feeling more confident. It's a feedback loop. Standing up straight, smiling, and making eye contact can reduce feelings of anxiety and make you feel more powerful. So even if you are nervous on the inside, try to project confidence on the outside. Your body can lead your mind. Finally, let's connect all of this back to the idea of setting goals. We talked about breaking through the intermediate plateau, and setting goals is a huge part of that. Often learners have a very big, vague goal. I want to speak English fluently. While this is a wonderful ambition, it's not a very helpful goal because it's not specific. How do you know when you have achieved it? It can feel so far away that it's discouraging. The secret is to break that big goal down into very small, specific, and achievable weekly or even daily goals. A good goal is something you can control and measure. For example, instead of, I want to be fluent, a better goal for this week would be, I will watch one 10-minute English video on YouTube and write down 5 new words. Or, I will have one 5-minute conversation with my language partner. Or, I will use the shadowing technique for 10 minutes, 3 times this week. These goals are great because you have complete control over whether you achieve them or not. And when you do achieve them, you get a small sense of victory. You can look back at your week and say, I did it. I accomplished my goal. This builds momentum. These small wins add up over time, and they build your confidence in a real, tangible way. Each small goal you achieve is like laying another brick in the wall of your fluency. Before you know it, you will have built something strong and impressive. So take a moment after listening to this. What is one small, specific English learning goal you can set for yourself for the next 24 hours? Don't just think about it. Write it down. A written goal is much more powerful. Make a promise to yourself and then enjoy the feeling of keeping it. This is how you take control of your learning journey and actively build the fluency you've been dreaming of. So you've set your goal, you've written it down, and you're ready to take action. This is a fantastic step. But now you might be wondering, what exactly should I focus on during my practice time to get the best results? How do I make my speaking sound less like a textbook and more like a natural, flowing conversation? The answer lies in a simple but profound shift in perspective. It's time to stop thinking about English as a collection of single words and start seeing it as a language of phrases and chunks. What do I mean by chunks? A chunk is a group of words that are commonly used together by native speakers. Think about it. When you speak your own language, you don't build every sentence from scratch, picking one word at a time, checking the grammar, and then picking the next word. That would be exhausting. Instead, you have thousands of ready-made phrases stored in your brain that you can pull out and use without thinking. Phrases like, by the way, see you later, or what do you mean? These are chunks. English is full of them, and learning them is one of the biggest secrets to speaking fluently. Let's look at an example. Imagine you want to talk about the weather. You could learn the single words heavy and rain. Then, when you want to speak, your brain has to do the work of putting them together. The rain is heavy. That's grammatically correct, but it's not the most common way a native speaker would say it. A native speaker has the chunk heavy rain stored in their brain as one unit. They might say, "We had some heavy rain this morning." They don't even think about it. Other examples are collocations like make a decision, not do a decision, deeply concerned, not strongly concerned, or phrasal verbs like run out of milk or look forward to the weekend. I once worked with a student named Lena. She was incredibly intelligent and had studied English for years. Her vocabulary was huge. She knew thousands of individual words, but when she spoke, it was very, very slow. There were long pauses between each word as her brain worked hard to translate from her native language and assemble the English sentence piece by piece. She felt frustrated because she knew so much, but she couldn't express herself smoothly. The change for Lena came when we shifted her focus from learning single words to learning chunks. I asked her to get a new notebook. Instead of writing a single word like decision, I told her to write the whole phrase, make an important decision. Instead of learning the word opinion, she learned the sentence starter, in my opinion. We practiced identifying and using these chunks. When she was reading, I'd ask her to highlight groups of words that seemed to go together. When she was listening, I'd ask her to notice the common phrases people used. Slowly but surely, her speaking started to change. Because she was thinking in phrases, she didn't have to do as much work when she spoke. Her brain could just grab the whole chunk, like on the other hand, and use it. This freed up mental energy to think about her next idea. Her speech became faster, smoother, and it sounded much more natural. Learning in chunks was the key that unlocked her fluency. So, how can you start doing this? From now on, whenever you learn a new word, don't just learn the word itself. Ask yourself, what other words does this word like to hang out with? Look at example sentences in a dictionary and find the common partners. Start a chunk notebook, and for every new entry, write the full phrase or a whole sentence. The more you train your brain to see and store language in chunks, the more easily and fluently you will be able to speak. As you start using these chunks, you'll also notice that in real conversation, there are little words and phrases that people use to connect their ideas and to give themselves time to think. These are connectors and fillers. Now, some teachers might tell you that using filler words like Renaus or like is bad. And yes, if you use them too much, it can be distracting. But the truth is, native speakers use them all the time. They are a natural part of spontaneous speech. They are the little bridges we build in a conversation while our brain is searching for the next chunk of language. So don't be afraid to use a natural amount of these fillers. Using a well-placed well ... or, can actually make you sound more natural than pausing in complete silence. Beyond these simple fillers, you can also learn more structured connecting phrases to make your ideas flow logically. These are incredibly useful, especially if you want to express more complex opinions. Think of phrases like, first of all, another important point is, and as a result. When you tell a story, you can use chunks like, it all started when, or in the end. These connectors are like the signposts on a highway. They guide your listener through your thoughts and make you much easier to understand. But what happens when you're in the middle of a sentence and you just can't find the word you're looking for? Your brain goes completely blank. This is a moment that can cause a lot of panic, but there is a powerful skill that fluent speakers use to handle this situation, and it's called paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is simply explaining what you mean using different words. If you don't know the specific noun, you can describe it. If you can't remember the verb, you can explain the action. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of a skilled communicator. Imagine you are in a shop and you need to buy something to open a bottle of wine, but you can't remember the word corkscrew. Instead of giving up, you could paraphrase. You could say to the shop assistant, "Excuse me, I'm looking for the thing you use to open a wine bottle. It's metal, and you twist it into the cork and then pull it out." The shop assistant would know exactly what you mean. You successfully communicated your message without knowing the specific word. That's a huge success. You can practice this skill. Pick an object in the room around you right now. For example, a lamp. Now, try to describe it without using the word lamp. You could say, "It's an object that sits on my desk. It has a light bulb inside, and I use it to help me see when I'm reading at night." This kind of practice trains your brain to be more flexible, to find different paths to express an idea. When you know you have this skill, you become less afraid of getting stuck. You know that if you forget a word, you have another tool you can use. You can simply talk around it. All of these skills, finding chunks, using connectors, and paraphrasing, are things you can learn by paying close attention to how native speakers talk. This brings us back to the importance of listening. But I want you to start practicing a new kind of listening. Not just listening for understanding, but listening for acquisition. This means listening with the specific goal of noticing and borrowing the language that you hear. The next time you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast, don't just follow the story. Pay attention to the specific words and phrases the speakers are using. When you hear a phrase that you think is interesting or useful, pause and write it down in your chunk notebook. Maybe a character in a movie says, "I'm on the fence about that," which is a great idiom that means you're undecided. Write it down. Then challenge yourself to use that new phrase sometime in the next few days. This active listening approach turns your entertainment into a powerful study session. You're learning the language in its most natural context. You're learning what real people really say. By becoming a language detective, always searching for new clues, new phrases, and new ways of expressing ideas, you will constantly be feeding your brain with the raw material it needs to build your own fluency. Your speaking skills will start to reflect the rich and natural English that you are actively listening to. This active listening approach, this idea of being a language detective, is incredibly powerful. You start to see the English language not as a set of rules to be memorized, but as a living, breathing thing that you can interact with and learn from. But like any detective, you need to be consistent. A detective who only looks for clues once a week won't solve the case. And a language learner who only practices when they feel motivated will find their progress to be very slow. This is where many people struggle. Life is busy. We have work, family, studies, and a million other responsibilities. Some days, you come home and you're just too tired to even think about studying English. You might think to yourself, I don't have a full hour, so I'll just skip it today. I'll do 2 hours tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes, and maybe you're busy again, and soon a whole week has passed with no practice at all. This is how we lose momentum. To fight this, I want to introduce you to a very simple but life-changing rule. I call it the 5-minute rule. It's this: on your busiest, most tired, and least motivated days, you must promise yourself that you will do just 5 minutes of active English practice. That's it. Just 5 minutes. Anyone can find 5 minutes. You can do it while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or during a commercial break on TV, or just before you go to sleep. What can you do in just 5 minutes? You could review your chunk notebook. You could use the shadowing technique on a 30-second audio clip. You could describe your room out loud in English. You could write 1 paragraph in your journal. The activity itself doesn't matter as much as the act of doing it. Here's why this rule is so magical. First, it helps you build a consistent habit. Doing something for 5 minutes every single day is much more powerful than doing it for 2 hours once a week. It keeps English in the front of your mind. Second, it overcomes the psychology of procrastination. The reason we don't start a big task is because it feels overwhelming. But 5 minutes? That feels easy. There's no reason to say no to that. And what you'll often find is that once you start, you might not want to stop at 5 minutes. Often, the hardest part is just beginning. The 5-minute rule gets you over that first hurdle. By keeping this promise to yourself, you are building trust in your own ability to stick with your goals. You are proving that English is a priority, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. This consistency is what separates successful learners from those who give up. So make that pact with yourself. No matter what, you will find your 5 minutes. Now, while consistency is key, it's also important to bring variety into your practice. If you eat the same food for breakfast every single day, you'll eventually get bored of it. The same is true for your English learning routine. If you only ever use the same app or do the same exercise, you might hit a plateau because you're only working one set of muscles. To keep things fresh and to ensure you're developing all your skills, it's a great idea to create a kind of weekly practice menu. You don't have to follow this exactly, but it gives you an idea. For instance, you could decide that Monday is your music day. On this day, your practice involves finding an English song you like, looking up the lyrics, and trying to sing along. This is great for pronunciation and rhythm. Then, maybe Tuesday is talk day. This is the day you schedule a call with your language partner, or you record yourself speaking about a topic for a few minutes. This is your active speaking practice. Perhaps Wednesday becomes writing day. You could spend 10 or 15 minutes writing a comment on a blog post in English, or writing a short review of a movie you saw, or simply writing in your journal. This helps you work on your grammar and sentence structure. Thursday could be thinking day. This is a day for a mental workout. For 15 minutes, you actively try to narrate your life to yourself in your head, in English. You describe what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're planning. This builds the habit of thinking directly in English. And Friday could be film day. You watch a short documentary, a TED Talk, or even just a funny clip on YouTube, and you practice your active listening, trying to catch 1 or 2 new chunks to add to your notebook. By creating a varied routine like this, you make sure you are touching on all the core skills: listening, speaking, writing, and even thinking. It keeps your brain engaged and makes the whole process feel less like a chore and more like a series of interesting challenges. You're exploring the language from all different angles, which leads to more well-rounded and robust fluency. And this idea of exploration can even extend into your physical world. We spend so much time learning English through screens, on our phones and computers. But the language doesn't just exist there. You can bring it into your home and your daily life in very tangible ways. We talked before about labeling things. Why not take 15 minutes this weekend and create your own English bubble in one room of your house? Get some sticky notes and label everything in English: the window, the bookshelf, the light switch, the power outlet. Every time you walk into that room and see those words, you are reinforcing the vocabulary in a natural physical context. You can also incorporate English into your daily planning. The next time you make a shopping list or a to-do list for your day, try writing it in English. The items on the list will be simple, everyday words: milk, eggs, bread, finish report, call the bank. This is a very low-pressure way to practice using English for real-life tasks. It connects the language directly to your daily activities and helps you memorize the vocabulary you truly need. And don't forget the power of talking to yourself. I know, it might sound a little strange, but it is one of the most effective tools for practicing speaking when you don't have a partner. When you're cooking dinner, describe what you're doing out loud. Okay, first I'm chopping the onions. Now I'm going to heat some oil in the pan. When you're getting ready in the morning, you can talk through your plans for the day. After work, I need to go to the supermarket. I hope it's not too busy. There is zero pressure. No one is listening. You can make mistakes, correct yourself, and experiment with new words and phrases freely. You are simply getting your mouth and your brain used to the act of producing English sentences. Finally, with all this new information coming in, all the new chunks, the new vocabulary, the corrections from your mistake notebook, it's vital to have a system for review. Learning something new is only the first step. If you don't review it, your brain will eventually decide that information is not important, and it will forget it. You need to tell your brain, hey, this is important. I need to remember this. A simple way to do this is to make Sunday your review day. Spend just 15 or 20 minutes looking back over your notes from the week. Read through the new chunks in your notebook. Quiz yourself on their meanings. Look at your mistake notebook and remind yourself of the corrections. The goal isn't to study for hours. It's to quickly and regularly expose your brain to the information again. This process of repeated exposure is what moves knowledge from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. It's how you make sure that the learning you're doing actually sticks. This simple habit of recycling what you've learned will make all your other efforts much, much more effective. This habit of reviewing and recycling your learning is like strengthening the foundation of a house. With a strong foundation, you can build much higher, and you can feel much more secure. And that feeling of security is exactly what you need when you take the next, and perhaps most exciting step, using your English in real, spontaneous conversations with other people. All the listening, shadowing, and practice you do is preparation for this moment. Yet, for many learners, this is also the most frightening moment. The training wheels are off, and it's time to ride the bicycle on your own. So how can we make this experience less scary and more successful? A big part of it is preparation. Just like you might prepare for an exam or a job interview, you can prepare for a conversation. This doesn't mean you need to memorize a script. In fact, you shouldn't do that, as it will make you sound unnatural. But what you can do is have a few tools ready in your mental toolbox so you don't feel completely empty-handed. One of the best tools you can have is a small list of starter topics. One of the biggest fears in a conversation is the fear of silence, the panic of not knowing what to say next. To combat this, you can think of 2 or 3 simple general topics you could talk about before you even meet someone. These could be things like a popular movie that just came out, your hobbies, your plans for the upcoming weekend, or an interesting piece of news. Having these ideas in the back of your mind means you have something to reach for if the conversation slows down. Another powerful tool is learning how to ask good questions. A conversation is like a game of tennis. You have to hit the ball back to the other person. If you only give short, one-word answers, the game stops. The best way to keep it going is by asking open-ended questions. These are questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. They usually start with words like what, why, how, or tell me about. For example, instead of asking, do you like to travel, which can be answered with yes, you could ask, what's the most interesting place you've ever traveled to? This invites the other person to share a story, which gives you more to listen to and respond to. I remember a student, Omar, who was very shy. He wanted to practice with a language partner, but he told me he always froze because he didn't know what to talk about. I suggested that before each session, he should prepare just 2 open-ended questions related to his partner's interests. The first time he tried it, he asked, I saw on your profile you like hiking. What do you enjoy most about it? This one simple question started a 20-minute conversation. It took all the pressure off Omar. He just had to listen and ask a few follow-up questions. This simple preparation completely changed his experience and built his confidence. Now, once you are actually in the conversation, what should you do? First of all, remember that you do not have to be talking the whole time. Being a good conversationalist is often more about being a good listener. Show the other person that you are listening and that you are interested. You can do this with your body language, by nodding and making eye contact, and you can do it with small phrases that show encouragement, like, oh, really? That's interesting. Or I see. People love to talk to good listeners, and it also gives you time to think and process the language you're hearing. But what if you don't understand something? This is a huge point of anxiety for learners. Many people just pretend to understand because they are too embarrassed to admit they are lost. Please do not do this. It's a missed learning opportunity, and it can lead to very confusing conversations. It is perfectly okay not to understand everything. Native speakers sometimes have to ask each other for clarification. You just need to learn a few polite phrases to use in these moments. For example, if someone speaks too quickly, you can say, I'm sorry, could you please say that a little more slowly? Nali do adas. If you don't know a word, you can ask, what does the word mean? You can also try to repeat what you think you heard to check your understanding. You could say something like, so, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that. This is an incredibly powerful communication skill. It shows the other person that you are really trying to understand them, and it gives you an immediate correction if you misunderstood. Asking for clarification is a sign of a confident and engaged learner, not a weak one. This brings us to what I believe is the most important mindset shift of all. When you enter a conversation, your goal should not be to speak perfect English. Your goal should not be to impress the other person with your big vocabulary or your perfect grammar. Your primary number one goal should be connection. You are there to connect with another human being, to share an idea, to learn something about them, to have a moment of shared understanding. When you shift your focus from, how is my performance, to, how can I connect with this person, everything changes. You stop being so critical of yourself because you're more focused on them. You listen more carefully. You ask more genuine questions. You become less self-conscious about your mistakes because you realize that the little details of grammar don't matter as much as the overall message and the feeling of the interaction. I remember one time I was traveling in a country where I didn't speak the language very well. I was trying to buy a train ticket and was struggling to communicate with the man at the counter. I was making many mistakes, and he was having trouble understanding me. I started to feel very flustered, but then he started to smile and used simple hand gestures to help me. I smiled back. In that moment, we weren't just a customer and a ticket seller. We were just two people trying our best to understand each other. We eventually figured it out, and we both laughed. My grammar was terrible, but the communication was successful because we made a connection. People are generally kind and patient. They are more interested in connecting with you than in judging you. So where can you find these opportunities for connection? Where can you practice having these real conversations? Online language exchange websites and apps are a fantastic resource that connects you with native speakers from all over the world. You can also look for local groups. Many cities have international meetup groups or language exchange cafes. You could join a club based on one of your hobbies, like a book club or a hiking group, that might have English-speaking members. And don't underestimate the power of small, everyday interactions. If you live in a place with tourists, you can offer to help someone who looks lost. Even a 30-second conversation asking, "Are you looking for the train station?" is valuable practice. Go to a coffee shop that is popular with international visitors and order your coffee in English. These low-stakes interactions help you build up your tolerance for the anxiety of speaking in the real world. Each one is a small victory that builds your confidence for the next, longer conversation. The world is full of opportunities to connect. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step and say hello. And when you do take that brave first step to say hello, what will that hello sound like? It will sound like you. This brings us to a really important final idea, the beauty of your own unique English voice. So many learners have a goal of sounding exactly like a native speaker from London or New York or Toronto. They spend countless hours trying to erase their accent, feeling frustrated when they can't achieve a perfect imitation. But I want to offer you a different goal. The goal is not to sound like someone else. The goal is to sound like yourself, speaking English clearly and confidently. Your accent is not a mistake. It is not a flaw. Your accent is a part of your story. It tells the listener that you are a smart and courageous person who has learned another language. It carries the music of your native tongue and the history of your culture. In our globalized world, there is no single correct English accent. There are hundreds. What truly matters is not your accent, but your clarity. Can people understand your message? Are you pronouncing words clearly enough to be understood? That is the real goal. So please, let go of the pressure to be perfect. Embrace your accent as a part of your identity and focus your energy on clear communication. The world needs to hear what you have to say in your own unique voice. As you move forward, it's also helpful to think of fluency not as a final destination, but as a continuous journey. You never truly finish learning a language, just as even native speakers are constantly learning new words and new ways to express themselves. Think of it like being physically fit. You don't just exercise for 6 months, get in shape, and then stop forever. You have to continue to maintain it, to challenge your body in new ways, to enjoy the feeling of being strong and healthy. Fluency is the same. It's a skill that you maintain and grow throughout your life. This mindset takes away the pressure of reaching some imaginary finish line. Instead, it invites you to become a lifelong learner, to stay curious, and to always enjoy the process of discovery. And on this journey, it is so important to stop and look back at how far you have come. Sometimes we get so focused on the mountain peak ahead of us that we forget to appreciate the distance we've already climbed. You are probably a much better English speaker now than you were 1 year ago, or even just 1 month ago. But because the progress is gradual, you might not notice it day to day. So I want you to do something for me. After you finish listening to this, take a moment to find some evidence of your past self. Maybe it's an old notebook with your first English writing in it. Maybe it's an old audio recording of yourself speaking that you saved on your phone. Find it and compare it to what you can do today. Read what you wrote. Listen to how you spoke. When you see the concrete proof of your own progress, it is the most powerful motivation you can find. It will prove to you that your hard work is paying off and that you are absolutely capable of reaching your goals. Celebrate your progress. Be proud of yourself for every single step you have taken. So our journey together today has been a long one, but the message is simple. Speaking English fluently and easily is not about finding a magic trick. It's about building a system of good habits. It's about immersing yourself in the language in ways you enjoy. It's about practicing speaking even when it's scary and training your brain to think in English. It's about focusing on phrases, not just single words, and learning to be a flexible communicator who can paraphrase when they get stuck. Most importantly, it's about shifting your mindset. It's about being kind to yourself, embracing your mistakes as learning tools, and focusing on the ultimate goal of connection, not perfection. You have everything you need to succeed. You have the ability, the resources, and now a roadmap of strategies you can use every single day. The path is laid out for you. All that's left is for you to walk it, one day at a time, one conversation at a time. And if you want to continue walking this path with me and to get more lessons, stories, and tips to guide you on your journey to fluency, then please make sure you subscribe to our channel, English in Advance. And don't forget to turn on that bell notification. It's that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. By turning it on, you'll be the first to know whenever a new lesson is ready for you. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss a single step on your path to becoming a confident, fluent English speaker. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It has been a true pleasure to share these ideas with you. Remember to be patient, be persistent, and be proud of your progress. You are doing an amazing thing by learning this language. Keep going and keep speaking. Until next time, this is Jessica from English in Advance, wishing you happy learning. You've got this.